Hello, everybody. My name is Bruce Montgomery, and this is my colleague, Tracy Priest.
Hey,
Tracy, this is where you
everybody.
say hello.
Oh, that's right. Hello.
Okay, we're with the Road to Retail. On our podcast, Tracy and I hope to offer tips, insights, and ideas, as well as examples about how small, emerging, and challenger CPG brands can build their business. Everything from determining if you're ready to grow, where to start, how to prove it online, how to go about securing distribution at a national retailer if that's important to you now, driving your business with the consumer, and how to go about finding an investor when you get to that level. The bottom line is we would love to help you be successful by highlighting the many important aspects along this journey to retail. Tracy and I have been in this business a long time, made a lot of errors, but if we can help you save some time and avoid some of those pitfalls, that's our objective. Tracy?
Absolutely. Thanks, Bruce. And Bruce and I, as he mentioned, have been in commercial operations for over 30 years in the CPG industry. And what we mean by commercial operations is sales, marketing, trade marketing, divestitures, acquisitions, distributor management, broker management, agency management. We've done a lot in our careers. And as Bruce mentioned, that's really our goal here on our podcast, is to educate and to teach small emerging brands about what to do, what not to do, and learn from the wins and the successes, as well as the failures that Bruce and I have experienced over our 30-plus year career. Also on our podcast, we have guests, colleagues, friends from the industry that we bring on to share their insight, wisdom as well. And today we've got a very special guest, and I'd like to welcome Joe Tarnowski. And Joe is the VP of Thought Leadership and Global Media at RangeMe. And Joe, great to have you on our podcast. And thanks so much for being our guest today.
It's a pleasure
Welcome,
to join
Joe.
you guys. Thank you.
Absolutely. So Joe, tell us a little bit about you and what you do, and then we'll hop into our interview this morning.
Sure. So basically, here at RangeMe, my role is creating thought leadership content, which spans a lot of different things, whether it's blog posts, speaking, webcasts, you name it, anything that's going to help our audience of buyers and sellers to up their game, to raise their game. So, and my background is journalism, so mostly in the trade media. For about over 20 years prior to ECRM, I've been an editor on most of the industry trade magazines that you see out there, whether it's Progressive Grocer, which was the last place that I worked, Convenience Store News I've written for, Gourmet Retailer, Store Brands Retail Leader. I still write for Drugstore News, MMR, Chain Drug Review on occasion. So that was my background prior to ECRM, but now I'm still in the content game, and I probably will be in the content game forever.
Awesome.
Hey, Joe, great. So as we jump in here, since many of our listeners are small, emerging challenger brands, they might not be that familiar with ECRM or RangeMe specifically. Can you give a little bit of a kind of Forrest Gump level explanation of what RangeMe is and how it benefits both the brands and the retailers, please?
Sure. So in a nutshell, RangeMe is an online platform that streamlines new product discovery and purchasing between suppliers and retailers. So for buyers, it helps them to efficiently discover innovative and new products, and also streamlines the inbound product submission process. We have about more than 15,000 buyers on the platform, spanning from tier one major national retail chains to regionals to independents. We also have restaurants and food service operators on there on the buying side. For suppliers, it helps them to grow their retail relationships with tools to manage their products, market their brand, and to build awareness. So they're up there 24/7, 365, easily discoverable by the buyers on the platform. There's about more than 200,000 brands, over 1 million products that are on the RangeMe platform. RangeMe is integrated into the ECRM product offering. So here you see we do have both brands behind me. And a lot of times they work in tandem, such as retailer sourcing campaigns, which I know we're going to get into a little bit more detail later, but those start on RangeMe and then they continue on to the ECRM Connect platform. So for those people who are not familiar with ECRM, ECRM connects buyers and brands through category specific sessions. So we have 130, I think it's more than that, sessions throughout the year that cover every single category that you'll find in a grocery store or a drug chain. Hair care, skin care, pet, beverages, snacks, so on and so forth. If it's a category in the store, we have a session for it. And in these sessions, we curate face-to-face meetings between buyers and brands. So these sessions are primarily virtual through our virtual meeting platform, ECRM Connect, but we do have a handful that are in person. So the buyers determine whether it's going to be in person or virtual.
So Joe, just one further clarification. I mean, that's a ton of brands and suppliers. So well done. I'm always shocked at the scale of ECRM and RangeMe. But again, just for the folks, this runs the gamut of everything from, say, cookies to high-end skin cream. Like, do you guys do, small appliances? And is it anything that can be sold?
Anything that you'll typically see in a mass retail, right? So you're not going to see huge appliances, but you will see, we do have housewares, small kitchen gadgets, things like that. But if it's in mass retail, chances are we have a session that covers it.
Great. Tracy?
Yeah, and as well, Joe, you do this internationally as well. So it's not just for the US, you do international sessions as well, correct?
Yep, both RangeMe and ECRM are international. We do have another office. We have our ECRM Europe headquarters, which is in Utrecht, which is the Netherlands, and that area is growing extremely fast.
Yeah, I thought so. And I just have to add one thing, Joe, especially during COVID, RangeMe and ECRM were the lifeline for brands because no one was meeting in person, and the virtual concept has really caught on. So we applaud you and your team for all the value and benefit that you bring. So one question we had is, I know that there's different levels of RangeMe. So there's also a premium on RangeMe. So tell us a little bit about, and RangeMe Verified, tell us a little bit about those programs and what that means to be RangeMe Premium and RangeMe Verified.
Sure. So RangeMe Premium, it's an annual subscription plan that unlocks specific features for the suppliers. So we'll get into the Verified in a bit, but let me go through some of the different benefits you get as a premium member. So one of the newest benefits is the ability to create a storefront and sell products wholesale directly to buyers, primarily buyers of regional and smaller retailers. And we have several thousand fronts that are up already. This just launched in February. But for these smaller independent retailers, it makes it a lot easier for them to just jump on, find something they want, buy it, and boom, it's done. So that's one of the newest things, newest benefits that premium members get. They also get exclusive opportunities to submit their products directly to buyers on the platform, and they'll get alerts when a buyer on the platform is getting ready to do a category review. So let's say some retailer is getting ready to do a skincare review. They will, if you're a skincare brand, you'll get an alert, and then you could submit your product directly for that review. You also get access to insights on buyer activity on the platform. So you'll get trends. You'll get an idea of what's top of mind among buyers that are on RangeMe. So we track all of the buyer activity across the brands, the products, which ones are getting the most views, which ones are getting the most messages, or the communication or sample requests or purchases. And so we get a good idea of where these buyers are trending in terms of what they're interested in. So they get access to that data, as well as how buyers are interacting with their particular profile. So they'll be able to go on and see, okay, these 3 products are really getting a lot of interest with buyers, and maybe these products are not getting as much. So if they're in a conversation with the buyer, they know they can focus on the ones that are really popular with them. So they get access to a lot of good intelligence about their brands and products. And then finally, you have the RangeMe Verified, which that is a message to buyers that that particular brand is ready to do business. To get the verified check mark, kind of like Instagram, you have that check mark, or Twitter, you get the check mark. Although there's been a lot of activity around the Twitter check mark.
Right. We won't go
Not,
there today, Joe.
yeah,
But
exactly. So that could be a podcast in itself. But anyway, so the RangeMe team will do some background checks and make sure they have their insurance in order, that their UPCs are in order. They'll check some other their distribution capabilities, so that this way, when a buyer on a platform sees that check mark, they know that if they want to place an order, that retailer, that supplier will be able to fulfill it. And the other benefit of being verified is verified brands show up higher on the searches because they're retail ready, and because the buyers have the most interest in those brands.
Great. So Joe, following up there, what are some of the best practices you've seen some of these smaller brands use with RangeMe, and how do they keep their storefront kind of updated, current, fresh, interesting, so that it's one of those ones like you just described that the buyers are engaging with? Is it, I mean, I think that's going to be really helpful to the folks right now.
Sure. And I spend a lot of time interviewing suppliers. When I'm at a trade show, I'm constantly meeting our RangeMe suppliers, and I'm picking their brains about, the ones who have had a lot of success. I'm always asking them, what do you think attributed most to your success? So based on those conversations, obviously one of the most popular answers I get is, the fact that they're premium and verified. Most of the ones I mean, there are a lot of successes with basic profiles, but if you're premium and verified, it does definitely give you a leg up. But Bruce, you actually alluded to something else that's very important, and is that keeping your profile fresh and up to date. Make sure you're constantly updating it with the most relevant information. Tweak the images, try out different images, be on the platform a lot, come on regularly. Sometimes maybe, one supplier told me once that just changing and updating their banner at the top has led to a dramatic increase in buyer activity. One supplier recommended to make sure all of your brands, all of your products images are on the banner, or to make sure your certifications are on there. You want to think of it as the way you would think of packaging that's going to go on a store shelf, right? You want certain call outs. You don't want too much information, but you want certain specific call outs that are hot buttons for consumers, but they're also hot buttons for the buyers, because the buyers know these things are going to grab the attention of shoppers. So you want to make sure to keep your site fresh. If you do have some new information, let's say you get you just get certified, make sure you go right in there and update your profile. So make sure you keep it fresh. Make sure the images are sharp. Don't take image. I mean, you can do some good images with your phone in a pinch, but have professional photography. Make sure the same way you would if you were going to put it on your direct to consumer website. You want all of the images to be sharp. And again, that cover image is your brand ambassador. They're going to see that. And then just make sure it's complete. I mean, some suppliers, they don't fill out all their information, but that's really what you want to put all the information there that you would tell a buyer in a meeting, because that's your shot. The buyer sees your profile. You want them to have everything that they need to make a decision.
Exactly. Tracy?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to go back that you had mentioned about submitting, and I want to just highlight this, is RangeMe provides small emerging brands ways to submit for a category review. Many of the major retailers confirm this with me, Joe, are using RangeMe, as their vehicle for brands to submit for their category review.
Yes, yes. And what they'll do is they will, it's indicated in the system, and when that review is coming, an alert will be sent to all the premium members that have clicked off that category, that they represent that category. But that brings me to one other point, is that you need to go on the platform regularly. You can't just set it and forget it. The ones that have had the most success that I spoke with, they're on a few times a week, because if a buyer messages you, you don't want to miss that. You don't want to miss the activity. You don't want to miss the opportunities. So you want to make sure that you're on the platform regularly, engaging with the retailers right away if they give you a sample request, or if they send you a message, and just to stay on top of what's happening.
Absolutely. And I can't emphasize that enough to our small emerging brands. As Joe said, it's not use it, set it up and forget it. It can be really a very valuable tool in your toolbox especially as a small emerging brand trying to get, the attention of a buyer submitting for category reviews. And I think the other thing is, just as you mentioned, the insights that you can get. You can see, again, confirm, Joe, how many people have viewed your,
Yep.
your site, what buyers have looked, that I've done this. And then I follow up with the buyer like, hey, I know, if I know who it is and have their email, hey, I noticed that you were, on the brand's RangeMe page, can I send you samples, whatever. So it's a great tool, but you've got to use it. Joe?
Yeah, and the other thing is, some of the most successful ones know how to leverage ECRM and RangeMe hand in hand. So they'll take those insights from RangeMe, and when they're in meetings with buyers at one of our sessions, they will bring that up. Say, "Oh, we've noticed." They could talk about the products that are trending within their profile, or they can, if they're meeting with a buyer who has been poking around their profile, they could bring that up in their conversation. So, they work one off of the other. And then what they'll do sometimes, if they're in an ECRM session, they will give the buyer, they'll say, here's my RangeMe profile. They'll send them their profile link instead of their website link. So this way the buyer can go and see not just the products that they were talking about, but also what other products they have. And the RangeMe members do have a link on the ECRM Connect. When they're meeting with a buyer, the buyer can check their RangeMe profile right from the ECRM Connect meeting platform.
Yeah.
So Joe, you've kind of dovetailed into the next question I wanted to put in front of you. And that's some success stories of how, and maybe you just started touching on one, how, ECRM and RangeMe, all the data works together and people can cobble that and then make an inquiry into a buyer like Tracy just said. So I don't know, if you're comfortable, sharing a couple of examples, and I'm sure if they're positive examples, those brands wouldn't mind being mentioned, but that's your call. Sure. But a couple of examples of how kind of real world, this happened, and this was the result, and that's a good thing.
Sure. And there's one thing I wanted to get into just before that, because it kind of leads into that.
Sure.
And that's, with the integration of ECRM and RangeMe, we have what we call summits and sourcing campaigns. And a lot of successes come out of these, but it's an example of the true integration of ECRM and RangeMe. And the summits, what happens is it starts on RangeMe, and then it continues on ECRM Connect. And so a sourcing campaign is, let's say a retailer might say, okay, we're looking for, we're just doing a hair care sourcing campaign. So we'll invite through email, we'll put the word out on social media, inviting suppliers, hair care suppliers, to participate in this sourcing campaign, and they have to submit their products through RangeMe. So if they're already on RangeMe, they just click a link and submit their products. If they're not on RangeMe, all they have to do is build a free basic profile to submit their products. Then after the submission period closes, the buyers from that retailer will evaluate all of those submissions on RangeMe, and then they'll make their selections and invite selected suppliers to meet with them face to face. So you may get like 2,000, 3,000 or more submissions on RangeMe, and then they'll whittle it down to the best 50 or 60 or whatever, and then invite them to meet face to face on the ECRM Connect platform. And then after that, they'll make their decisions to follow up with them or take it to another level, which gets us to some of the successes. So one of the successes that I want to talk about, it's something that's been written about publicly anyway, so it's it's public information. Came from a Kroger's Go Fresh and Local. I think I'm naming that right. Kroger's Go Fresh and Local Summit, in which it involved RangeMe, ECRM, and then an in-person thing at Kroger. So they there's a company called Mazza Chutney, unbelievable sauce. And they applied, like there were several thousand suppliers that applied for this. And then the Kroger buyers, evaluated them on RangeMe and then picked a select number to meet with them on ECRM Connect, right? So that's that next level. Then they met with them, and based on their face-to-face meetings with them, the conversations on ECRM Connect, they whittled it down to, I believe, 15, who were then invited to go to Cincinnati and present to them in person. And then 5 were chosen to be their cohort. It's kind of like an incubator. It's
Nice.
incubator program where for that year, Kroger and I think they had some additional people worked with them to grow their brands in those stores. So, that's one example. There's another example. There's a company, a small brand called Joy Bells. They make sweet potato pies, which are amazing. I met with them at I think it was the Fancy Food Show in New York. I got to meet with Joy Bell in person. I actually did an interview with her. She's gotten into I think Sam's Club and Food Lion. There are a lot of smaller, as far as the RangeMe direct purchasing. There's a brand called Blind Tiger Spirit Free Cocktails, a woman-owned brand, very interesting. The founder actually owned a speakeasy restaurant. And what she noticed was that a lot of her customers were requesting non-alcoholic cocktails. And these weren't just customers that were like on the wagon. They were just more health and wellness minded. So she created her own brand of spirit-free cocktails modeled after famous speakeasy cocktails and launched the brand. And then joined RangeMe as a premium member, opened a storefront, and she was one of the first brands that actually got a direct purchase where a small retailer bought several cases of her product directly on there. And so and there's a lot of instances of smaller retailers doing direct purchases. A couple of other examples. There's a restaurant that I hang out in my neighborhood called the Thirsty Koala. Good friends of mine. I have posted a lot about them. She's a RangeMe buyer, and she found and here's an example of a food service operator, a restaurant. She found this gluten-free flour that she's been looking for good gluten-free flour forever. They're known for their gluten-free offerings, and she found this flour that was so good that it really inspired her to get back into the kitchen and start creating new products, new menu items from that. And she's been, she's placed a huge order and has been ordering from them ever since. So, I mean, we just have countless examples, both big and small, and of brands succeeding in different ways, whether it's brands doing direct purchases to a small retailer or a brand getting into a large retailer and going national. So lots of cool case studies like that.
Yeah, but that's excellent because it's real rubber meets the road of how working with your service pays off. Tracy?
Yep. Yeah, just one thing you had mentioned, and I've participated in these as well on the ECRM side, is retailers using this to access diversity-owned brands.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit about how that works. And I think the biggest benefit that I've other than RangeMe and submitting for category reviews and things like that is retailers specifically looking for diversity owned brands. So
Yep.
maybe speak a little bit about how that works and what that looks like for
Perfect. Yeah. In fact, that's one of the most popular uses of our summits is when a retailer would do kind of a themed summit, right? So diversity, supply diversity is one of them. Also sustainability or maybe private label. So the summits are where they cross categories and it focuses on a certain theme versus the sourcing campaigns where it might be one specific category. I'm doing hair care or I'm doing the cosmetics or what have you. So a lot. In fact, I think it was Schnucks and I believe it was Meyer. Both of them launched their supply diversity efforts in conjunction with ECRM and RangeMe through these things. And a lot of brands have been discovered in that way. And in fact, I believe Joy Bells is one of them that participated in one of those diverse and minority owned summits that also span RangeMe and ECRM. So it's one of the most popular uses. It's a huge, very top of mind. We have our ECRM sessions that cover diverse owned suppliers coming up, I believe, in the first quarter of next year. But yeah, that's a very popular thing, especially in searches. A lot of buyers are constantly searching either for certifications that represent a diverse owned brand, or they're just doing text searches for women owned, veteran owned, minority owned, what have you. So that's another reason why it's important for suppliers on RangeMe to make sure that their profile is filled out in detail with all of those keywords that they're going to search on. If you're woman owned, make sure you put that in there. One of the stories that's just going to go on our site, I think this week, is a company, a small salon called Astoria Beauty Bar, where it's a salon, but she has several shelves of products, and she specifically wants women-owned brands. So she's a women-owned company, and she really wants them. So she's always
That's
doing her
cool.
searches, and she found one company called Little Buddha, which is a woman-owned and minority-owned brand that makes all these different beauty and skincare products. And she now has some of her soaps and other products on her shelves at the salon, and has developed a great personal relationship with Daisy, who's the founder of Little Buddha.
Great story, great example. So one last question we have for you, Joe, is what mistakes and missteps you've seen brands make utilizing RangeMe? What are
I would say, sure, yeah, I would say one of the biggest mistakes is just inactivity.
Mhm.
Just not going in, checking the platform, checking in with the platform regularly, being, not responsive to buyers on the platform, not updating it. All of the recommendations that I mentioned earlier, when they don't do those, if they just put it up there and think it's going to perform miracles by leaving it alone, you can't do that. You got to be active on it. You have to engage, constantly refresh it. So I would say inactivity on the platform is the biggest issue. You can't just throw it up there and then all of a sudden, hey, why nothing? Why isn't anything happen? And they haven't changed anything. They haven't updated it in months. Also make sure, again, like I said before, your artwork, your imagery is on point. Hire a professional photographer, someone who knows how to take product shots. And just the other thing is make sure you take advantage of all of the capabilities on there. You can integrate it to your social media. You can put videos on there. You can really, really jazz it up. It's just you want to take the time and put the effort into that good creative.
It's
Hey,
what
hey, Joe, before we roll into the big finish here, is there a tutorial or something out there that someone who's curious to to see, kind of test drive it a little bit? Is there something out there where they can tinker around to go, oh, now I get it?
Yeah, I mean, we have the RangeMe blog, which has a lot of information, a lot of success stories, a lot of case studies on how it's being used. But that RangeMe also has a help center, which has all the information about the basics, 101. How do you do this? How do you do that? And what we're actually in the process of doing now is incorporating more video tutorials to complement the text. So we're going to have some of our client success managers going through some of the different best practices on video for people who prefer to get their information that way.
Makes sense. TP, the big finish.
Awesome. So Joe, tell us, I know you're not hard to find, but tell our audience who may not know about you, what's the best way to reach you?
All right, I'm pretty much everywhere, like you said. So I'm always on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find there. You can email me at joe.tarnowski@rangeme.com. So it's TARNOWSKI. And again, I'm really active on LinkedIn. I'm there multiple times a day. Could always shoot me a message there. And happy to respond. I'm very responsive on LinkedIn.
Great.
Well, this has been great, Joe. We really appreciate you being on, and just wanted to remind our audience that we are now available on Spotify as well as iTunes under Road to Retail. We also have our YouTube channel, so look for this great episode in the next week before Christmas, interviewing Joe Tarnowski from ECRM RangeMe. Thanks so much, Joe, for being on. You've been a great guest.
Thank you for having me. Hey, maybe it'll come out by my birthday, which is December 19th.
All right. Good luck out there, folks.
Thanks, everybody.